Amazing. So, panel is here. Our first Forces to Pharma event is now live. So welcome everyone who's watching, everyone who's tuning in, everyone who's registered for this event. Thanks for joining in. I hope everyone gets a lot of value out of this. But first of all, we'll introduce ourselves. So my name is Ellis Greenway. I'm the client engagement lead here over at the Thermo Group and Ex-Military Careers. So our whole aim at Ex-Military Careers is to support military leavers, the whole ex-military community into meaningful places of work. And this is our collaborative effort with BioTalent called Forces to Pharma. So here what we'll be discussing is the life sciences industry, how veterans can look at making an impact in the industry, how to get started in it. We've got an amazing panel, some amazing insight and experience here to kind of guide us through that. So that's me in a nutshell. And Jason, if you just want to introduce yourself. Not on mute, please, Jason, mate.
Yeah, thank you for everyone for joining and to our panelists. So yeah, I'm Jason, currently CapEx recruitment consultant at BioTalent. We provide freelance solutions to GMP projects across Europe. I have a background as an analyst in the Royal Air Force, and alongside Ellis, I'm a lead on the Forces to Pharma initiative, basically to find meaningful employment for veterans within the life sciences space, following on from service.
Amazing, thanks, Jason. So if we could just go around the room, not picking anyone to start, but Colin, how about we start with you? If you could just give us a bit of a background to your military career and where you're currently at now, please.
Thanks, Ellis, and thank you for the opportunity to join the panel today. So currently, I work for Thermo Scientific. I'm a senior operations director, and I've worked in the life sciences sector for getting on for 25 years. My military career, I was an engineer. I graduated as an engineer and joined the Royal Navy, and I found my way into the submarine service and spent 10 years in the submarine service as an engineer, and then left the Navy. Had a very brief spell in the oil and gas sector, which seemed the logical thing to do, which is why I'm so interested in this, because I have to say, at that time, life sciences was not naturally where I would have expected my career to take me. And then I had a bit of a break, got into the life sciences sector, and have never looked back. It's been a fantastic career choice, having left the forces. So we'll maybe come back to that, I'm sure, but that's a brief intro to myself. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Colin, thank you. Perfect. And Olivia, if you could do the same, please.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Ellis, and thank you, Jason, and thank you to everyone who's tuning in here. It's so nice to have you. So my name is Olivia Cream. I work for a company called Stryker. I am the Senior Director of HR. I've been there for a little over 10 years now. And I came to Stryker directly out of the US Coast Guard. So I went to the Coast Guard Academy and I graduated with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering and went straight into the field from there. I spent most of my time on units at sea doing counter drugs and migrants, mostly down in the Caribbean. It was an absolute blast. I loved everything about my time in the service. And then I left the Coast Guard in 2012, right after my engineer officer tour. And I went straight from the military to Stryker, and I've been there ever since.
Perfect. Thank you, Olivia. And Mike, last but not least, if you could do the same for us, please.
No, fantastic. So I actually started my journey in the field in life sciences, and then found myself to the armed forces, which is the other way around than the usual. So I did my PhD in the University of Nottingham, and as soon as I started that, I joined the Army Reserves here in the UK, part of the Royal Yeomanry A Squadron, based in Nottingham, where I was doing my undergrad. I'm now the CEO of a biotech company. I'm a chairman of an Alzheimer's therapeutic company, and I'm also a venture capital investor in the space of biotechnology and healthcare. So I get to see sort of quite a lot of companies at a smaller stage and earlier stage than the other two, who have sort of bigger calibers behind them. But it's a fantastic space to be in, and I'm very much looking forward to discussing exactly where we can actually work together.
Amazing. Thank you. So yeah, hopefully everyone gets a good insight to who's part of this panel and why they're sat here and the expertise and the insight that they can offer us today. So first of all, what we'd like to discuss is what is life sciences to you and how would you define that? So if we jump back in reverse order, Mike, coming straight to you, how would you define life sciences in a nutshell?
No, absolutely. So, I mean, the space itself, I mean, it covers everything from sort of tests that you'll see in a test tube done in basically in a biochemistry set, all the way through to pharmacy and pharmacology, and sort of medical devices. So it's a very broad term and a very broad industry itself, and it is segmented into other things. I think the one key thing here is the fact that even though it might sound scary in terms of it being quite science heavy, the underlying mechanics of how it works. I mean, a business is a business, a project is a project, right? So, and a plan is a plan. So the underlying mechanics are pretty much exactly the same. They work within the same constraints as what typically you might be used to sort of in either sort of the army on the operational side or in other types of businesses. And I think that's one area that's not really talked about much, is that yes, it is an industry in science, but it's still an industry. And I think that's the one thing that it really shouldn't be scaring people off at all, just because it's science heavy. So over to everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something to be really mindful of, isn't it? It can seem very daunting going into something where you've got a whole misconception about what something might be. So tackling that is definitely something in its own right. But Colin and Olivia, then what's life sciences to you, and how would you really sum it up for people looking from the outside in?
You want to go first, Olivia?
Sure, Colin, thank you. So I started off with the actual definition of it. So, the actual definition of life sciences is that it encompasses some hard scientific development with physical products that include pharmaceuticals, therapeutics, diagnostics, and medical devices. Now, if I chunk that down and put it into my own words, we're just making the lives of patients better. That's all we're doing. We're just making life better. So we take care of our caregivers so that our caregivers can take care of patients. And I think that's what I love most about this industry, is the mission is closely aligned to why I joined the armed forces in the first place, is to leave this place a little bit better than I found it. So I love everything that Michael said. I would not be scared off about joining the medical device or life sciences industries. There are so many opportunities. And we have such need for great people who are passionate, who are disciplined, who want to leave this place a bit better. There is a place for you here. So that's kind of how I think about it.
You couldn't have you couldn't have set me up better, Olivia, and we haven't rehearsed any of this. So believe me, so I'm going to kind of answer that at quite a high level. I'm going to draw from the mission statement of Thermo Fisher, the company I work for, and the mission statement is enabling our customers to make the world healthier, cleaner, and safer, because I think that just encapsulates the whole kind of life sciences piece, right? It covers it all. What does that mean? Healthier. So yeah, anything to do with kind of how, healthcare, in our case, sort of to do with testing, diagnostics, but we also do manufacture pharmaceuticals, safer. So we kind of think things like food safety. So anything to do with kind of making sure that everything we eat or use is safe, and cleaner. So environment, in our case, we have a lot of products and innovations to help make the environment cleaner. So it's really broad encompassing, and I agree absolutely what Olivia said. The mission, I think the mission in life sciences is such a purposeful mission, right? It's something you can really feel good about coming to do, and I think that to service people and ex-service people, that plays very well, right? Because we're very mission driven, and we like to feel we're kind of aiming at something that is adding value, and the life sciences sector definitely does that.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you everyone for giving you summaries there. But I think that the real takeaway from that is it's so broad. It isn't just people in their lab. There's so many opportunities out there, so many things that are transferable. And hopefully we'll look to break some of these down as we go through this discussion and really target some key areas where we think veterans can make an impact. But Jason, I know you've got some questions as well, and I don't want to end up taking this all away. So yeah, please go ahead, mate.
Yeah, definitely. That's all brilliant answers to what we're really looking to achieve. One of the things that stood out for us when we were kind of researching this is that a lot of reports are showing that the life science industry is expected to be worth around 2 trillion by 2023. Just to put it out there, start with yourself, Mike. What do you think has equated to such a rapid growth within the market?
Yeah, that's not a broad question at all. No, I think it's the fact that more people and more investors and more money has actually woken up to the possibilities opened up by life sciences. I think usually, and this is something that we've seen across the board, from people who actually wanted to go to space, into the space, to people investing in it. I think typically and traditionally it's been a bit scary to people. They've thought that actually investing in science, they must have an advanced degree or at least a master's to even play in the space. Now people have really woken up to just how fundamental the life sciences industry is to everything that we do. You look at everything from clean technology and green technology all the way to pharma and oncology drugs, right? Everything in between. It's so fundamental to what we do, and I think now as a society we're very much more leaning on that, the ability to leverage life sciences to their full potential. We're very, very much interested in bettering our health and bettering the surroundings of ours, and that's exactly what, as you heard from my associate, that's exactly what the space is about. And I think people, especially post-COVID, have really kind of taken that to heart. I think that looking at a silver lining rather than anything too positive, but it really brought home to a lot of people just how important the space is. It's no longer something on the periphery where it's scary and not to be talked about. It's something that everyone is actually fundamentally interested in, or benefits from in some way or the other.
Yeah, brilliant. And yourself, Colin, what do you think is attributed to this rapid growth?
Well, I think it's all just part of man's constant kind of innovation and desire to have a better quality of life, right? And the life sciences sector kind of fuels that, all of the innovation and living healthier, living longer. If you just think how our life expectancy has increased, our quality of life, it's a lot of the innovation that has driven that comes from the life sciences sector. And then the other piece is around the development of the world, emerging markets in the world. So there's lots of opportunity to sort of spread that innovation into all corners of the world. So there's lots to do. There's lots more to do, is what I'm saying. I say, even though we have the luxury of living in very well developed healthcare sectors, etc., a lot of the world doesn't have that. They want it, so therefore that's a pull, right? It's only kind of money that more and more investment and money that's going to constrain that. So it's just all about our desire to live better lives. I think it supports that.
Yeah, brilliant. And Olivia?
Yeah, I don't know if I have much more to add. I think my two counterparts here nailed it. I would just say, as we continue to evolve and the technology gets better, there's no shortage of problems for us to solve in this space. So what used to be a death sentence, or what used to be a sentence that binds you to a wheelchair for the rest of your life, is no longer so. So as we're getting smarter and as the technology gets better, we are able to use those advancements in technology to prolong human life, and prolong a good quality of human life, not just prolong the life itself. So I think that's probably the cause for the surge.
Yeah. Oh, go on, Colin, sorry.
Yeah, I remember hearing quite an interesting fact about the pandemic, that when the pandemic started, most of the solutions to the pandemic were known very early on. I mean, within days and a few weeks, in terms of how we were going to fix this. All that had to happen, it was a big task, but was to scale it up, right? And that was kind of quite fascinating. What the vaccine needed to be, how to test for it, etc., etc. We had those solutions. Some of them were kind of almost waiting to go, and then it was just all about the scale. And of course, huge amounts of money poured into it from governments, and it was scaled up massively. So.
Yeah, really interesting as well. And we were just talking actually about the military involvement in that whole sphere, and using the military to step in and scale up, which is a really good example of this, the transferable skills. And, logistically, the military does not run without logistics, and, what company can run without logistics? So one specific area just on its own there. But when we're looking about, making that transition, So of our viewers there, 75% of them just said that opportunities to grow was one of the causes to jump into this sphere and to make that move. And is that something that was conscious in your guys' minds, looking at the life sciences market, or was it something that or did you just fall into it and it just kind of took in its own steam? So I'll open up to the floor, whoever wants to go ahead with that.
That was definitely a draw for me, yes. As I mentioned, I'd had a brief, sort of when I left the forces, I briefly worked in the oil and gas sector, and I realized quite quickly how sort of cyclical and kind of vulnerable that was. When it's going well, it's great, but when it's not, they cut pretty hard. And when the opportunity came to get into the life sciences sector, I saw that, and quite rightly, that's true, as a much more kind of secure career path, because that need is always there. It's much more stable, and that's been true, right? I've never been out of work since I've joined the life sciences sector, and in pandemic, for instance, you never work harder than ever. So it's definitely a very secure career path, providing you kind of you stay flexible in terms of keeping your career skills up to date to stay relevant within it.
If I could pile on, Ellis, I think there's endless opportunities in life science. I mean, endless. And you mentioned logistics. I mean, just think about the logistics that's needed to manufacture a product, get it shipped to a warehouse, get it shipped from the warehouse to a customer, make sure all the parts are there, it's delivered on time when the customer needs it for a case, and it needs to be perfect, because if you're missing a part, that means that person can't have surgery. Think about the logistics from A to B, right there. So if you're someone in logistics, there's a place for you. And trust me, we need it, because that could get better every day, right? There's opportunities to create efficiencies. Yeah. If you're an engineer, there's R&D. We just talked about innovation, right? This is where the innovation is. We're always solving problems. And as humans, we tend to create more problems for ourselves. As we continue to evolve, we create more problems, and they need solutions. If you're a finance major, think about some of these big companies like Stryker, like Thermo that Colin's at. We need well-skilled financial professionals to manage these big books of business. If you're kind of savvy and you're more in that sales space, holy crap, is there a lot of money to make, because our customers buy from people that they like and that meet their needs and help them solve problems on the spot that are dependable, right? So no matter what you're interested in, there is a place for you in life sciences. And you just mentioned that it said that life sciences is moving into the trillions now in terms of, the amount of funding and resources that's going into this area. What does that mean? When you hear dollar signs, that means growth. And with growth, that means opportunities. So the opportunities are absolutely endless, if this is something that you're interested in.
Yeah, and I think to build on that as well, that the life sciences space as a whole, I mean, I'm talking about biotech specifically in healthcare just because that's the vertical I'm in, but I also hear this from my colleagues, is we literally cannot get enough talent. We literally, like, the more we can get, the better. We are absolutely not even close to satisfying our appetite for getting talent in through the doors. Literally cannot get enough. And that's the first key. And second, it's in terms of opportunity for growth. I mean, I am yet to see an industry that's this much of a meritocracy outside of life sciences. I mean, it's about how good you are at people, whatever the job is, people, finance, whatever. It doesn't matter necessarily, if you've just been in the industry for 1 or 2 years, or if you've been in it for 5 or 6. If you do the job better, you grow. And then at the next step, you learn the lessons you need to grow again, and you grow again. It's something that's so obvious, sort of when you look at the space, and it actually really isn't a given necessarily in every industry out there. And as much as Olivia also said, in terms of, if you see pound or dollar signs sort of dotting around, that's a good thing. And it is, and quite importantly and quite poignantly now, actually life sciences and healthcare is seen as a defensive strategy for finance people to a recession. So money that otherwise would have been going to other industries right now will be going to healthcare, which means that healthcare will be growing, which means that there will be more opportunities and our appetite will grow even further. I mean, as I said, we're not even close to satisfying what we've got now, let alone what we'll be feeling in about 12 months' time. So in terms of riding the wave and getting to an industry that's not just, you know, doing okay, but about to literally grow at an even faster rate than it has been, it's a fantastic time to join the party, as it were, right now.
Yeah, obviously some amazing points there, and you know the overall response, which I think we will share, is that there's an immense amount of opportunity to do well and succeed, and you know create these opportunities for yourself, whatever you want out of your future career path. But something that I'd like to touch on and really bring the authenticity is, what do you think are the barriers for veterans getting into this place of work, and is that from the employer side, from the individual side? And I think, Olivia, this would be a really good one. I'd like to come for you, considering your position and what you've done firstly. So yeah, what would you say that are the barriers for those people making that transition?
To us, we are the barrier. We self-filter ourselves. So typically what happens is veterans that I talk to all the time, it's like, I'm begging them, please, oh my gosh, can you please just apply for this? Just apply for it and see what happens. But it's almost like we have this, this fear of failure. Like, what if I apply and I don't get an offer, it doesn't go the way I want, or somebody tells me that this isn't a good fit for me. And we're so afraid of the rejection that we don't step out of our comfort zones to apply for these opportunities, and therefore we don't get them, right? So we tend to, what I see with a lot of veterans, and I still do a lot of work with Lucas Group and Orion, and what I hear from veterans, especially when we go to those recruiting conferences, is, will I be good at this? Like, are my skills transferable to this? So you almost hear the self-limiting beliefs coming through when I'm talking to these amazing, talented humans, and they're talking themselves out of it before I even get done with my sales pitch, right? So I really think, I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, but I think you have to bet on yourself and know that your foundation, your grit, your discipline, your work ethic, those are things we cannot teach people. We can teach you how to sell. We can teach you the nuts and bolts about a product. We can teach you the rules of finance, if that's what you're interested in. But that leadership, that grit, that discipline, that dependability, we can't teach people that. And that is what companies are so hungry for. So please, 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 if you see something you're interested in, roll the dice, just apply. Good things will happen, I promise.
Yeah, anyone else want to chip in there?
So I think if you're fortunate enough that Olivia's the HR partner you happen to meet coming in the door, you're probably okay, because she's going to decode everything for you, right? But the kind of one of the best bits of advice I remember getting when I was kind of resettling out of the forces was something to the effect that you can go and work anywhere you want. You just need to learn the language of where it is you want to go and work, and then make sure you can explain your own skills in that language. I think Olivia's kind of sort of tried to, from a confidence point of view, explain that from the other side. But that, I think, is a key barrier. So it is yourself that is the barrier, but the key to it is to understand, and I guess that's why we're doing this, and we're trying to help people to kind of make some connections, build some understanding of the industry. It's understanding how the skills you have, and you've absolutely got lots of skills if you're coming out of the forces, how you can explain those in a language that whoever you're talking to, whoever's you're hiring, manager or whatever in the life sciences sector, can understand that, yes, I can see this relates to what I need. And then I was fortunate when I applied for my job, I said I got a bit of a break. The hiring manager, he hadn't been in the forces himself, but he'd worked in a dockyard, and he knew the forces, and he recognized, just from my CV, he recognized that my skills were exactly the ones he was looking for in the role. So it was a bit of a punt by me, and I was just very fortunate. So if you get that sort of break, you're fine. But ultimately, yeah, to help yourself, just try and work on how do you decode those skills and translate them into something that is going to be recognized by the hiring manager.
Yeah, exactly. I think to build on that as well, it's very much getting over that first barrier, and then you're basically in the water. And that's the key message, is that the whole space, you really don't need 13 PhDs to be able to work within it, right? It really isn't that, because you have the skills, you have the soft skills already. You hold. It's all about just having the vocabulary to do it. And I mean, it's literally like, if you do basic training and then you go into the artillery, right? Like you can finish basic training and go to quite a few different verticals within any armed service. And that's the differentiator. You basically learn that first language, that just fundamental basic, in a few months, and then you're good to go. And then you start swimming, and it doesn't really matter. You can even move verticals within the space, right? If you think you'll do really well and actually love it in logistics, but then something else, actually really does it for you, and then all of a sudden you want to go into project management, which is a completely different vertical. You have the ability to do that. And I think the one key thing that is just so clear from anyone leaving the services is the fact that you are so flexible and resilient, so that actually you're able to leverage your skills in a number of spaces, which actually in the grand scheme of things is really not, again, it's not a given, it's not the rule outside of the military at all. People tend to sort of just get themselves into one silo and stay there, and don't really necessarily by default think about how that might translate elsewhere. And I think leavers from the military are very, very much better, as a generalization, better at that, and thinking, oh, actually, I could do this, or what I can do now is a little bit more useful somewhere else. And you're able to react and be more sort of flexible around you as a person than I've seen sort of typically elsewhere as well. So the key message for me is, that barrier, that initial barrier, is really not as high as you think it is, and it's really not the space afterwards. And you can really sort of get going as soon as you get over that initial learning, and that's all it is. It's, again, I just can't stress enough, you do not need 15 years of experience and 2 PhDs. You really don't.
Yeah, definitely all relevant. And from our previous discussions that we have had, like, what would you say were those key skill sets and like soft skills that you can gain from the military, which would be applicable to getting over those barriers? Mike?
Yeah, no, I'll jump first. I think, again, resilience, absolutely key. The ability to just react to a stimulus outside of your control, but still be able to form a plan and go with it. I mean, that's basically any job in life sciences, regardless of which vertical you're in. And again, you get very good at it in the military. So that's absolutely one key thing. Second, your ability to dedicate yourself to a task. Again, it's the fact that I have a deadline, I'm going to work to it, and I will dedicate myself to making that happen. That kind of motivation and the ability to self-motivate, which is an absolute given in the military, is not the rule outside of it. And if you are able to do that, any leader looking at you as a talent going through their team will literally sort of count your weight in gold in terms of how valuable you'll be to the team. And the fact that the rest of the team will be able to also rely on you for that support is a must. In life sciences, as anything, the plan will fall apart within the first 2 seconds of becoming in contact with the real world. How you deal with that is exactly how valuable you are to the team. So I think those for me would be the absolute key, but I'm sure there are many more, so I'll leave some unsaid.
So I think it's about the high personal standards. That for me, there was something that I found helped me to kind of acclimatize quite quickly into the industry. I started my life sciences career in pharmaceutical manufacturing, and right in the high end of pharmaceutical manufacturing was sterile pharmaceutical manufacturing, which is probably in some ways the worst and the best place to start, because there were sort of life-saving drugs, very, very high standards required, and you kind of need a culture where you can trust that everybody's going to do the right thing, not just because they're following instructions, but because they know it's the right thing. They're going to be stood over and watched, and I think that is built into us in the services as forces. You set very high. You're taught to have very high personal standards and high standards for your team and your unit or whatever you're on, and you all kind of try and strive to maintain that. And that culture is kind of translates very well into that environment where you're making products which are extremely critical for customers and patients, and you may be the link in that chain, which does or doesn't define whether the right quality product arrives. And and does the job. So that for me was kind of really important.
Yeah, that definitely. And the personal standards one is something that going through basic training, I think everyone's had drilled into them. So we've all got some good memories of being being tested to the max with them. Olivia, have you got anything to add to sort of skills?
Yeah, so to pile on to what Colin said, I think operating in the space, you have to operate ethically. We're talking about lives here, right? So our products are going into bodies. So you have to have people that have the highest level of ethics, because we want to do what's right. Otherwise, we could do a lot of harm if we don't. So I completely agree with him there. I also think the ability to problem solve. So back to innovation. Everyone has to have the ability to problem solve. And I think, no one person is going to come up with these life-changing solutions by themselves. It's typically a group effort as people put their heads together and come up with the best solution to a problem, not just a solution. So on top of that problem solving ability, I would also say collaboration. And that's one that you don't hear often, but once you get into the civilian world, it's no longer your personal mission. You're now on a team that is aimed to provide the best product, service, whatever, to our customers who are patients, right? So in order for us to function, you have to collaborate. And that means sometimes you might have to knock an edge or two off to be able to collaborate in a healthy fashion with a team. So I definitely throw that one out there as something to be mindful of. It's no longer just you solo running after something. It's now you and a whole team. So that collaboration piece becomes very important.
Yes, spot on. And I just want to raise there for people who are asking questions in our chat. We will get around to them towards the end of this. We'll do a Q&A, so we're not missing them. We will come back to them. But while we're on this kind of skills element, and from our poll that we just put up there, actually, we see that most people have answered, or everyone answered, adaptability and problem solving, kind of that we just touched on. And I don't know who commented it, but I put a poll out a while back, and someone referenced the phrase that if you give me a chicken, I'll give you a beef pie. And I thought that was a very simple way of just saying the adaptability and that problem solving. And how many times in our military careers have we been in a position where there is a task, there's a mission, there's a goal, and I haven't got the manpower for it, I haven't got the resources for it, but I can't turn around and say no. So you have to come up with these solutions. So I thought that was a really good way to summarize that. But something I wanted to touch on a little bit more specifically now, and it's still on that skill set basis. In the shoes of someone who could be potentially watching this thinking, yes, life sciences, sounds like it could be for me, this sounds great. What would you advise that first step to be in terms of kind of looking for a role or developing a skill set or something like that? What would that initial step look like if you had to advise it?
Colin, do you want to go first?
No, I think this one's yours. You're HR. I think you're well placed to start this one.
Okay, so I have a couple of quick tips. The first one is tailor your resume. Okay, so your resume should not look the same for every single job that you apply to. And what you want to do in these job postings, there's typically criteria. Are you collaborative? Are you enthusiastic? Do you want to join a great team? And then some technical descriptions of what you will be doing in role. Tailor your resume so it becomes clear to the recruiter that's reviewing it that yes, I can collaborate. Let me give you some examples. So we've done so much in the services that it's really hard to put down on one sheet of music, right? And my other point is, please don't let your resume be 15 pages long. It needs to be a page and a half tops. Just think about how many resumes recruiters go through daily. If it's more than 2 pages long, I promise you they're not even looking at it. So make it as small as possible, and how you decide what gets put on there is whatever aligns to what the job posting is saying that they need in an employee. Secondly, do your homework. Okay, you want to, just as much as the recruiters are interviewing you, you're interviewing them. It's no longer you have to go where you're told to go. You have a choice here, right? So you want to think about what kind of work environment do I want? Do I want to travel? Do I want to work remotely? How much money do I want to make? What are your personal requirements? And then go do some research on that company, because nothing drives recruiters more crazy than someone that shows up and knows absolutely nothing about the company. And then the last tip I would give you is, once you've done a little bit of your research, go stalk that company page on LinkedIn. Check out some of the people that work there. See if they have a veterans association, or if there are veterans, because most people list their careers on LinkedIn, and make a connection with them and say, hey, what is it like to work there? I'm interested. Can you give me some information? That piece is very anxiety inducing for veterans, because we do not love to connect that way, to stalk people like that. That's a new skill for us, but I promise you it'll pay dividends, because the veterans that are out in the workforce, we want to give back, we want to help, we want to pull other veterans into our organizations as well. So the more personal contacts you have within an organization, the better chance that you will, one, understand how that organization truly functions, and two, you'll have an advocate from the inside to help you have the best opportunity to secure the job that you want.
Yeah, I think before I pass on to Colin, who I'm sure will be much more elaborate than I literally have one very, very quick tip, which is really sort of underline your leadership experience. And the army and the military, I mean, in general, the military is fantastic at giving you leadership experience from a very, very early stage. I mean, from the point of your first promotion, you are now leading a team, and then you grow that skill set. You can, in any industry in the private sector, you can go basically your entire career without managing people. And understanding that, even in the industry, you don't actually use that skill right now. It makes you invaluable in terms of how you work with your team, how you work with your manager, how you then leverage that moving forward. So that's the first thing. Really sort of nail what leadership actually meant to you during your career, wherever that may have been. And second, I mean, kind of built into that, have confidence. At the end of the day, yes, we're talking here about how you can put yourself in the space of life sciences, but I would be absolutely over the moon if we could actually bring some mentality from the military into the life sciences space as well. It's not just a give relationship, it's a give and take. And I think the military leaders have a huge amount to give to the space, not just sort of, don't think about just how do you fit yourself here, but what can you do to space? Talk to the recruiter, talk to the HR about what you can also bring that they just do not have. The ability to understand morale, for example, is incredible. It's something that actually in the private sector doesn't happen very often. Like, oh, well, this team has a big churn and we're losing a lot of people. Oh, well, that's strange. Maybe it's raining outside. No, like it's the understanding of morale and the ability to understand, okay, I need to do something about it is huge. And that's something that you bring to the table straight off the bat and talk about it, leverage it, shout about it if needs be. So I think that those are the two very, very quick sort of advice points from me.
Okay, so I'll echo a couple of things Olivia said around kind of CVs and give my own kind of tips as well. I absolutely agree with Olivia's point around customize your CV. That's really, really important. You need to approach searching for a job as a job in itself, and that means you've got to get right into the details. So have a kind of basic CV, but as Olivia says, look at the employer or the job you're applying for and do some tweaking of that CV so that you kind of customize it to sort of bring it to life, if you like, for that particular employer or that role. And you need to keep a kind of track of what you're doing there so that you kind of, which CV you sent to which employer, because if you get an interview, then you need to make sure you're coming in with the right one. The other thing is to keep it short as well. I agree with that, 2 pages. I mean, if I've done a lot of hiring in my time in the sector, and yeah, you've got about 30 seconds. You've got a pile of CVs, you've got about 30 seconds. You're scanning through, and something's got to jump out of me on the page quite quickly to be able to kind of put that to the right pile. And I'm not looking for this sort of a career history. I'm looking for what you did. I'm looking for what's so, how successful, what did you achieve, some results. I'm looking for the sizzle in there, not just the kind of story. So make sure you're also pulling out your achievements and making those stand out. And remember, the other thing about CV is this was a tip given to me when I was leaving the forces as well. The only reason you need a CV is to get an interview, right? And I think if you remember that, you kind of, it helps to frame your thinking, right? Because once you've got that interview, the CV's lost. They're now meeting the person, right? So do what you need to do. I've heard some quite interesting stories of things people have, some really clever things people have done with CVs to get that interview. And then obviously that's job done, right? Now you can sell yourself, now you can talk, and now you're building a relationship. So that's important. I think the other, in terms of just generally, coming into this sector, so do your research. So that, as we said at the beginning, there's a huge range of career paths here, right? So, anything finance, HR, science, science, engineering, supply chains, it's huge, right? So there's no barrier there. So you need to pick where you're going, which bit of the whole life sciences sector do you want to work in? Because that's where you're going to feel comfortable, interested, and it suits your career skills, and then kind of research that and research the companies which have those strengths. A company like Thermo Fisher has the full range, but not, smaller companies will only be operating in some particular sectors of the life sciences industry. So make sure the companies you're approaching and looking at are relevant to the bits of the sort of career paths you're interested in, and then do the sort of research. Look at what roles are going up and the language that's being used. Another tip is don't wait for a job that is 100% you to come up, right? That's just never going to happen. The tip I was given was 60%, and that's quite daunting. I think coming out of the forces, that was one of the sort of mistakes I was thinking. You're looking for a job that is me, that just isn't there, right? 60% of the job profile is you, go for it, right? Because probably the other 40% they're not that sure of themselves. That's one thing, yeah. And the other bit is sometimes there's more than one job behind that, right? And just that 60% gets you in the door, gets you meeting, and I've seen that happen as well. I've offered jobs to people which were not the original job that they came in for. So the rules are slightly different, I think, to how we kind of perceive things to operate when we're in the forces.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. Sorry, I'll just sort of build on literally, I promise, 2 very quick fire points. I know. So first on the CV side, use numbers, right? So when we talk about showing people what you've done in the military, again, how big was the team? Silly things like how much was the equipment worth? Things like that really sort of just jump out for one and really put across your credibility as a person. That's one quick thing. And second, on that 60% point, if the job description doesn't sound 100% like you, that we've all here written job descriptions, and I can guarantee that we're not looking to fill 100% of that ourselves. We want to make sure that the person we find fits with the team that we're building. But if there's a line that says that you need that, and as long as it's not an absolute hard skill, if it's a nice to have that we're putting on there, we will give that up in a heartbeat for the right person, and you won't know until you've applied. So just don't self-filter yourself. Apply. Like if you're not, even if you're 10% sure, if it's a quick application, just apply. Let them filter you out. You don't filter yourself out, because there will be a time where someone's looking for a specific person that they're looking for that click. They're not looking for you to have that one, I don't know, qualification in Excel or whatever it is, because that's something that we can teach quickly in a week. For us, it's much more difficult to train a mindset and train the personality. We can't do that. We can train you in a quick skill that will take a week or 2 to train. That's fine. So don't filter yourself out. Just put that on the recruiter. If they filter you out, fine. You haven't lost anything apart from maybe 10 seconds of your life.
Yeah, I think so much of this, what we've just discussed, boils down to is have the confidence, have the courage in your convictions, go for it. Like, your skill sets are there, they're wanted, they're needed, and back yourself, because even going down to the leadership, that can't be taught, which every company wants, and you can create a success story in any company just by having those soft skills and those values. But what I'd like to touch on now is if we flip it on its head, from the service leaver side to the employer side. So what should employers be doing to attract veterans specifically, and not just to recruit them, but also to retain them?
Olivia, you want to go first?
Olivia,
Sure,
next
you
to
guys
you.
just throw me in here. So there's several things that you can do. Of course, I'm biased, but I love my company and we pour a ton of energy into veterans. So what we've done is we have a employee resource group that's called the Stryker Veterans Association, where we get together and we talk about these things. We also have a subgroup within our talent acquisition group that's focused specifically on military recruiting. I highly recommend, if you're a company looking to target military talent, then you look within and find some military talent and help people to decode some of these things that we're talking about. I also think you have to do your outreach efforts, right? So we do have like university recruiting that will also go into programs. In America, we call it TAPS. So it's kind of your end of career transitioning program. We try to catch people at TAPS to see if we can get an audience with them. We do a lot of recruiting using like algorithms, so you can push information to specific groups. I think that's another very low cost, easy way to target veteran talent. And then I would also encourage companies to, if you're not that sophisticated yet, or maybe you don't have a ton of veterans that you can leverage from within, to use companies like Ex-Military Career, like BioTalent, like Orion, like Lucas Group, as that they're out there recruiting this talent pool, and can place folks very easily within your company. And that's a little bit of a lower maintenance way. That's probably the easiest way to get some veteran talent into your organization, is by forming these partnerships that bring some very, very highly talented, highly skilled people into your org. And lastly, I think out of the nuts and bolts, I would say listen to your veterans. So we do engagement surveys just to say, hey, are you getting what you need? Does your opinion matter? How are you feeling about working here? And when you ask, listen, right? So don't just ask, review the survey information and make progress based on what your veterans are telling you.
Yeah, no, I think to add sort of on the listening side and a little bit more, 2 points, and they both revolve around flexibility. So firstly, when you see a service leader that's yet to get that first job in the private sector, and they're applying to your job, actively think, could they fit in another job? I know recruiters do that anyway, but think even wider than you typically might as a recruiter. Is this a skill set that actually, they're applying for this job, but would they actually be a very good fit for this other department's job that's currently open? That's one, just so be flexible on that side. And secondly, on the retention side, again, be flexible. Odds are, if you're taking your first job in life sciences, it might not be the perfect fit for you. And giving that skill and the talent, the ability to try another department, another type of work within your organization, means that you still leverage the impact that they can bring to you, and you don't lose them. And it's something that's almost a given when people talk about graduates. So when a graduate comes in, they actually get thrown into 2 or 3 or 4 departments to find their feet, see where they find themselves best and where the company finds them best, right? It's a two-way street. Because the service leader might come in at a slightly more senior position, doesn't mean that giving them that ability to try a couple of different things is the wrong one. I think that should be a little bit more of a given, a rule, where it's exactly the same thinking. A graduate coming in is the first job in the industry, so you want to make sure they're the right fit. Even if they might be fine for that job, they might be fantastic in another. And I think it's exactly the same kind of thinking with a service leader. And I think that's something that I haven't seen done yet at any of the companies I've seen, but something that I think would be a fantastic step for us as an industry to make.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot easier now than when I did it 25 years ago. I think businesses have come a long way in kind of embracing veterans, if you like. And there's probably a couple of reasons for that. One is, as Mike said, there's a sort of skills, there's a shortage of getting people, suitable people into the industry. And so it's had to kind of wake up to the veterans as a talent pool for that. And the other one is that, and I think the life sciences sector is generally very good at this, and certainly Thermo Fisher is, the whole kind of ensuring that we're building a very diverse and inclusive workforce. And Thermo Fisher has some very strong programs around diversity and inclusion, and the veterans, veterans form a part of that diversity and inclusion piece. We also have employee resource groups, which Olivia referred to. We're an American company, although I'm in the UK. There's a very mature veterans resource group in North America, and we're just building one in the UK now. I'm actually the sponsor of that, and that is part of trying to ensure that we're helping to get the message out that veterans are a source of talent, through our HR partners, but also to enable, if veterans join the organization, that there's somewhere they can feel a little bit at home, I guess, with straight away. They can network immediately with a group of ex-veterans who can help them to kind of onboard and transition in. So I think there's a lot more things now, that make it easier to connect and transition into the sector.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say to anyone who's looking at leaving whatever role, if you see a military pathway that they've got an internal group, that is a huge green flag for your attention, because they value you, they understand you. So like companies such as Thermo Fisher, Stryker, Eli Lilly, these great kind of pathways that are there. I'd say to anyone watching this that's a huge green flag. So just coming up to kind of time-ish now, Jason, I want to pass over to you for one more question, if you've got one for our panel, before we jump into some of our comments and some of our questions.
Yeah, brilliant. Fourth and final question for me really then is, what is the first step an ex-military personnel in our audience should take to pursue a career within life sciences? Colin.
I sort of feel we sort of covered that.
Yeah,
I think we're kind of talking about the CV and kind of researching out in the business. You're probably doing some of it now, right? You're on this webinar and you're taking interest and you're starting to make connections already. So keep going. Well done.
Yeah, I think perhaps just to elaborate on what we've already talked about on that side, reach out to the likes of the two of you or recruiters in the space, right? Because they see this whole playing field from a very high level, right? So even if it's just a conversation, you don't have to ask them anything particular. Just ask them about the space. Ask them about what they see, why they see it, why they might think someone like you might be a good fit. They're not going to expect you to have answers there and then. Just reach out to them. They're as you can see, they're clearly very, very keen to lend a hand anyway. But they're also a fantastic sort of point of contact for the space, because they will be relatively unbiased, depending on what kind of openings they've got at that time. But again, they see the entirety of the playing field from such a high level, so that they'll see every vertical. They'll understand it. If they themselves don't, they'll pass it on to someone else. Use them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my one top tip, and it's one that's shared quite a lot, is start networking. Whether you don't know your market, your sector, whether you do, get networking, be confident, put yourself out there, start meeting people, and have the confidence in who you are and what you've done, but develop that beginner's mindset that you just want to be a sponge. And there's so many resources out there now, like touching on what you said, Colin, about how difficult it might have been 20, 25 years ago. We've got setups such as ourselves. We've got countless people out there who are willing to facilitate this move. So yeah, that is what I would say. Start networking and be that sponge. So we've got a few comments in here. We've got a few questions. So one of them is, I think maybe companies should go to the military and make it mandatory for service leavers to undertake these schemes. So if you give people the option that they won't take it because of other reasons, but if it's mandatory, it would help. I think, it's a difficult line to start crossing if you make people go to programs, but that's exactly what we do here at Ex-Military Careers. So for anyone who doesn't know, we're a not-for-profit, and we set up pathways for people to have these opportunities into these communities. And to bring the exposure to them, because a lot of the issue, and I'm sure everyone in here would agree, is as a service leaver, you don't often get the exposure to these opportunities that are out there, and it's usually you fall into it or you come off your own back until we're in the position of having these military and career pathways that are set up and they're advertised and they're marketed and they're already out there in the sphere. So unsure if anyone's got anything that they'd like to add on that comment before we jump on to one of the other ones.
Yeah, I just want to pile on, Ellis. So on the networking front, let me just give you this little tip. So people reach out all the time asking about Stryker, and not just about Stryker, just like, hey, Olivia, can you help me? I am so accessible and so willing to help, but nothing drives me crazier than when I respond and I say, happy to help. How can I help you? And they're like, oh, I don't know, can you point me in a direction of a job? And I'm like, well, have you gone to our career site? Do you have a job in mind? Nope, haven't done that. Listen, if you're going to reach out for help, you need to have done some networking or some researching, sorry, not networking, on your own. You need to know exactly what your ask is. So if it's, hey, I'm kind of interested in this product line, can you tell me a little bit more about it? Are there opportunities here? Great, happy to answer that question. If it's, hey, I applied for a job, would you mind popping my resume out in front of the recruiter? No problem, happy to do that for you. What I am not gonna do for you is do the research and find a job for you. That is your job. I will help you, however, facilitate that process. So when you're networking, just be mindful of what your actual ask is, right? If you're looking for more information, if you're looking for a connection, if you're looking for whatever it is you're looking for, just make sure you have that ask in mind. So you're not coming in just with your arms out like this, asking for help. We're busy. We want to help, but we're very, very busy. So please do a little bit of legwork to figure out what it is that you actually need us to help with ahead.
Perfect. Good advice. So we've got quite a specific question about companies in Southeast area in Kent. We won't touch on that on this really. If you just want to reach out to us personally, happy to help on that one. But one here that I think might start everyone maybe kicking themselves a little bit. I was a medic for 15 years, got out and now have an MBA in healthcare management. Are there any opportunities out there? I'm sure everyone's probably just going to be thinking, yes, there's so many. But any kind of tailored advice, specific advice, or something that you'd like to weigh in on that one?
Well, I think we're at risk of starting a bidding war here between the three of us. So as I was saying, quite hungry for the talent. No, I mean, like there will be a huge amount. I think it also doesn't say sort of necessarily geography wise where they are, but literally right now, especially with the sort of remote working becoming slightly more standardized depending on the vertical within the space, now is definitely the time to scope out where to go. If you have an MBA in healthcare management, you're a shoo-in. So either reach out to one of us directly or one of the recruiters. But yeah, again, as I said, ride the wave now, and that's clearly a shoo-in for typically what we look for in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if that doesn't say kind of enough when we're talking about your skills and how much they're wanted, then you've heard it here for yourselves first, anyone who's listening in. But yeah, so we're getting up to the end of our time now as well. So just wondering if anyone's got any kind of final points for advice before we start coming to the end of this. If anyone's got any final burners that they'd really like to put across to our community and people who are listening in here.
So I think closing thoughts for me, Ellis, I just want to leave our audience with this. You are enough. You're valuable. I think Mike said it. You don't need another degree. There's so many opportunities. Our companies are hungry to hire you. Even whether you're in the US or elsewhere, Stryker is a global company. I would encourage you to consider us and check out what we have on our career pages. We would love to hear from you. We want you in our communities, in our work environments. So please, please, please reach out. And if there is anything, I truly mean this, if there's anything I can do personally to help you in your search, I am more than happy to do so. So please don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, I think one.
Go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
Sorry, Colin. Thanks. Again, I really want to underline the point of just don't filter yourself out, right? If that means that you have an extra 1% chance of getting that right job, take it. You're really not losing anything by applying. And at the end of the day, and this is a fantastic aspect of the bigger companies rather than the smaller ones like mine, in that if you're the right talent and we really want you in the space, everyone's got budgets to, even if we need that degree to come through, we'll fund it. If you're the right person, spend a year or two, find your feet, make sure that you're the right culture fit, and the company is also right for you, which is another aspect. But if you're worried about that being a ceiling, it's not, because if you're the right shoe in, they'll pay for whatever training is required to take you to the next step. So don't take yourself out of the running just because you think you might not be the right fit.
Yeah, I mean, I think look on life sciences as a career choice, right? It's not just a job. It's a career opportunity. There's so many different roles out there. It's a space where you can really build and manage a really diverse and interesting career. So think of it in those terms. If you get into it and it's not for you, well, nothing lost. But I think I'd be very surprised if there's not something in there for you, even if it's not the first job you started on. When I joined life sciences, I was in my first job for 9 months, and then over to another job. And I think that was kind of a real contrast as well with the kind of forces, how quickly you can kind of move around into different roles once you're inside the company. Yeah. And as Olivia said, if anything you can do to help with kind of your networking or kind of advice, please reach out. My own background is very much operations orientated, so I'm probably going to do better on questions and that side of things. But if not, I'll try and point you in the right direction. But yeah, glad to help. Thank you.
Amazing. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. So for everyone listening, and we've had a really good insight there. And you've got people here who are military serving still, ex-military, who are leaders in the space. So please, don't use and abuse them, but go reach out to them, make the most of it. The Forces to Pharma kind of community is one that we're going to keep growing. You should hopefully be seeing a lot more from us moving forward. But thanks so much for weighing in and being part of this first session that we've had. So our open networking kind of event is happening right now. So if we get any final questions, we can touch on them. So anyone watching, if you've got any final burners that you'd like to ask our panel in the next couple of minutes, fire them in. But aside from that, just a huge thank you. I think that the real kind of message that we're trying to get across here, just to put it out there again, is just to say, this is such a viable opportunity for military leavers. Just because you've not heard about it before, don't be scared. There's people who've gone out there, they've done it, they've been so successful. And three of them are sat here with us now discussing it and saying how much your talent is wanted and how much it's needed. So yeah, no, just reiterating a huge thank you. We'll absolutely be staying in touch. You'll see more from all of us again in the future. Some of you might end up working with some of the people who are sat here right now. We never know. Crazy things have happened. But no, thank you again. Thank you so much, guys. And we will see you all very soon.
Thanks, Ellis. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Guys.
Bye.